Interviews like this, Terrence Howard on Joe Rogan's podcast, the stuff this man was talking about, like sent me, I was like, it's too early in the morning. First of all, I made the mistake of putting this on at like 7 a.m. and I hadn't even had my coffee yet. I was like, okay, wait, hold on. There's a lot here. The minute he started the interview and start talking about memories from being inside his mother's womb and crashing in and all the philosophical things he was saying, I was like, oh, holy crap. Like this needs to slow down. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. And of course, you're going to see a ton of articles, videos talking about this interview. I urge you to try to watch it, but make sure you've had a cup of coffee. Make sure you are philosophically ready for this, because the stuff this man is talking about, okay, as a person who knows engineers, I'm married to an engineer, all right? And I know how the minds of engineers work. And even my dad went to school for computer engineering. And like a lot of people I grew up with, my stepdad is an electrical engineer. I get it. There's a way these people, their mind works that it can carry on. It's like almost as bad as Neil deGrasse Tyson. When Neil deGrasse Tyson got on Joe Rogan podcast, he couldn't shut up. Like I was like, when is Joe Rogan going to be able to ask a question? It became Neil deGrasse Tyson's podcast. It didn't become, Joe Rogan's podcast. I was like, when is Joe going to chime in? When is he going to say something? Because Terrence Howard took this conversation over completely. There was like a good full straight 25, I would say 30 minutes of him just talking about the periodic table, talking about, scientific and engineering things and thoughts about, basically he was describing the Fibonacci sequence, talking about the Fibonacci sequence being in everything. Oh my God, he went into debunking flat earth and right within the first 30 minutes of this interview. There was a lot of stuff he was talking about that I was like, this man is either he's extremely smart and he's a genius, or he's a person that the first thing that came to mind, just so you guys know, my first instinctual thought, and I don't know anything other than his acting and all that. I don't know much about Terrence Howard's books or what he reads or any of that stuff. But judging from this interview, and I've seen him do things already where he's been on these apps and talking about stuff with other people, but I never really gave it that much thought because I'm like, he's an actor. And I think many of us, right, when we see people like Terrence Howard, and they start talking about stuff that's like important, it's kind of hard for us to like get out of this mindset of him playing roles like Lucius Leon from Empire. I never watched Empire, by the way, but I heard it was pretty good. So, when we look at things like this and we see him playing Lucius, right? It's hard for us to get into this mindset that this man is this smart, that he went to school for chemical engineering, and that he's actually pretty brilliant. He did drop out of school. He said, he named off a bunch of people that are his mentors, people he looked up to in the engineering and science and, that sort of world. And I thought it was fascinating. I mean, if it wasn't for him getting interrupted by his, iPhone going off and telling him he needed to take his medicine, quote unquote, I was like, what kind of medicine is this man on? That he credited to his wife because he's trying to detox from heavy metals. And like immediately I went through I'm a conspiracy nut. I love conspiracies. I don't give a crap if you don't, that's on you. I love a good conspiracy. I think it's great when people can actually think for themselves, when people can actually question things. It's like the kids that grow up in school and you see them say, but why? Why do we have to do these things this way? Why is it that way? Or who made this up and said that this was fact? Who said that, 1 + 1 = 2, that type of thing, We have to question what is around us. We have to question things in the world in order to understand it better. And he said from the time he was very young, he always was questioning things. He would question his teachers in math. He would question his science teachers. He never could just accept things for the way they are. I love that in a person in general. Like for me, I went immediately to he's an Aquarius or he's a Pisces. And when I looked it up after I watched the first 35 minutes, I was like, oh, I was right. He's a Pisces. I went to Aquarius first only because Aquarius people, they need to work with their hands. They need to be able to connect to whatever material they're learning. They can't learn in this mindset of just sitting and reading a book. They have to learn by doing. They have to physically do in order to learn. That's most Aquariuses. Sorry, Aquariuses, but this is you. You're a person that's very hands-on. You're the person that will create, but you have to physically do it. But then when he was saying he was doing things on computers and putting in, he has so many patents and he's done so many great things, I was like, that made me think Pisces, because Pisces are intellectuals. They love to think. They love to go outside the box. They love to question. They like to push back on authority. They don't like the idea that people can just make up stuff and there's no person coming in with a third party perspective, so to speak. So that was why I thought he was one of those two. And he is a Pisces. So it makes perfect sense. Now, depending on who you ask, it says that Terrence Howard is a Jehovah's Witness. But I know that for a fact he grew up in that, because I remember seeing interviews of him talking about it. And many of these people that grew up in Jehovah's Witnesses, they kind of keep that on the DL. They don't talk about it very much because religion and science doesn't always mix. But here's my last takeaway from this podcast with Joe Rogan and Terrence Howard. Make sure you have somebody around that's a scientific mind, not a person that's like me, that's straightforward communications. I don't have this kind of mindset. I don't understand things that well. I never did that well in science class. I just didn't really care. I felt like when you start, and this is just my viewpoint in life, I feel like the problem I have with the science community is that they're just too fucking curious for me. I'm sorry to say it that way. It's like my grandma used to say this thing that said, curiosity killed the cat, or kills the cat. And it means that sometimes your curiosity and your over-the-top lust for figuring out the questions of life can get you in trouble. And that's actually a part of the interview. He mentions that. He says one of the things that he wanted to do was figure out the answers to all of the problems. And I'll leave it at that. But I just feel like science on a whole is too much fucking around and find out. Fuck around, find out kind of thing, trying to, mix animals with humans, trying to, use animal organs. I mean, all the shit the scientific community comes up with. I get it that they're trying to solve problems in life. But if you're a deeply spiritual and connected person to your higher source, right? God, whatever you want to call him, sometimes it's best to not worry too much. It's like these people that want to live forever, like him stopping mid podcast and freaking taking a pill or whatever the hell he was saying he was taking because his wife says it's helping him to detox. Like, I'm one of those people, I feel like in life, balance is everything. Balance is key in life. A little bit of anything at this point, who the fuck cares? Like, you are going to die anyway. That's guaranteed. Death and taxes are guaranteed in life. It does not freaking matter how much you try to preserve your looks, your age, any of that shit. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're living with purpose, intention, and love. And you have a place in your heart to sit back and just enjoy things, which is why I enjoyed the interview. But I will have to watch it when I've had a drink or something, because this stuff was like, I was like, hold up. Like, I have a lot of questions. I had to go, like, I wanted to pull up the periodic table to see what he was talking about and all the math involved. If you're not a math person, you don't understand numbers. And this man's quoting pi off his head and all sorts of different, quoting all sorts of numbers, light speed, miles away from the sun. I know the miles away from the sun, but that one's pretty easy. But this man is like calculating how fast Earth is moving away from the sun and how many trillions of years we'll be away from the sun. Oh, anyway, you guys tell me what you think of the Terrence Howard interview. I thought it was fascinating. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot to unpack in his interview. You got to watch this in, like, I'll say in little chunks, like little segments, and make sure you have some notepad and paper and you are taking notes, because the stuff he's talking about is like, blows your mind. Have a great day and remember to think for yourself.